March 1944. Camp Kenedy, Texas. The woman stood frozen in the middle of Kempf's grocery, her dark eyes reflecting fluorescent lights she had never seen before. For a moment, 19-year-old Yuriko Tanaka forgot the American WAC officer standing beside her. The dizzying array of food stretched in every direction. Canned goods stacked in precise pyramids, vegetables arranged by color, refrigerated cases humming with electricity. This abundance, available to ordinary Americans during wartime, represented impossibility made flesh. Her hand trembled as she reached toward a display of oranges, perfectly formed and available in March, a season when such fruit had disappeared from Japan years earlier. Across Texas detention facilities that spring, approximately 237 Japanese women, classified as civilian internees, confronted a reality that contradicted everything imperial propaganda had taught them. They discovered a nation where grocery stores contained more food than military officers received in Tokyo, where ordinary housewives chose from multiple brands of the same product, where even enemy prisoners received adequate nutrition. These women, previously enslaved as iyanfu, or comfort women by the Japanese military, found themselves documented, protected, and treated with unexpected medical care and dignity. The mathematics of American democracy were being written in supermarket aisles and mess hall meals, revealing an American society that rendered Japanese deprivation not noble sacrifice, but systematic exploitation. What began as disbelief at American abundance would evolve into profound psychological recalibration. These women, whose average age was 23, had been recruited or coerced from Japan, Korea, China, and the Philippines through false promises of factory work or nursing positions. Military records from the 14th Infantry Division, which captured the largest group near Hollandia in early 1943, documented their physical condition. Average weight 87 pounds, multiple untreated infections, evidence of repeated physical trauma, malnutrition manifesting as beriberi and scurvy. International Red Cross representatives first encountered these women at processing centres in Australia, documenting their status with clinical precision. A February 1943 report noted, "Female civilian detainees show evidence of systematic abuse inconsistent with conventional prisoner treatment. Physical examinations reveal patterns indicating sexual exploitation under military authority." Initially hidden from public acknowledgement, these women were eventually transferred to specialized sections of existing POW facilities in the continental United States. Camp Kenedy held 118, Camp O'Donnell housed 63, with smaller groups at 3 other Texas locations. American intelligence officers interrogated these women with growing horror as their actual function in the Japanese military structure became clear. Their testimonies revealed a network of comfort stations stretching across Japanese-occupied territories, where women serviced between 15 and 40 soldiers daily. Many had been in captivity for years. The oldest had been taken during the Manchurian invasion in 1931. The captured women arrived with unshakable beliefs about America, that its wealth was propaganda fiction, that its people were barbaric, that its society was chaotic and brutal. Imperial indoctrination had prepared them for execution or torture upon capture. Instead, they received medical treatment, regular meals, and eventually supervised work details in surrounding communities. There, in small-town Texas supermarkets, beauty parlors, and department stores, they encountered an American reality that would systematically dismantle Japanese imperial mythology more effectively than any propaganda film. Their journey from sexual slavery to witnesses of democratic abundance was just beginning. The Pacific Theater, 1943. American amphibious forces landing at Hollandia discovered structures behind Japanese defensive positions that defied military classification. The small wooden buildings contained narrow partitions, creating cubicles measuring approximately 6 feet by 4 feet, each with a thin sleeping mat and little else. Military police initially secured these locations as potential field hospitals until interpreters questioned the Japanese women found hiding nearby. Their answers transformed routine processing into horrified documentation of systematic sexual exploitation. Lieutenant Colonel James Merriman's after-action report from April 23, 1943 noted, "Female detainees initially identified themselves as nurses or administrative personnel. Subsequent questioning through interpreters revealed their actual function within Japanese military infrastructure. These women, designated comfort women, ianfu, were conscripted to provide sexual services to Japanese troops. The report documented 73 women recovered in that initial operation, primarily Korean, 42, Japanese, 17, Chinese, 9, and Filipino, 5. Their average period of captivity was 19 months. Medical examinations revealed extensive trauma, with 84% suffering from untreated venereal diseases, 71% showing signs of physical abuse, and 100% exhibiting severe malnutrition. Naval transport ships converted to prisoner carriers brought these women to American territory through carefully plotted routes. USS General William Mitchell, departing Hollandia on June 12, 1943, carried 118 female detainees along with 2,104 male Japanese prisoners. The women occupied segregated quarters on D-deck, where Navy medical personnel began emergency treatment. Ship's logs recorded their physical condition with clinical precision. Average weight 87 pounds, hemoglobin levels 50% of normal ranges, severe dental deterioration, multiple untreated infections. Chief Medical Officer Lieutenant Commander Robert Phillips noted, "Female detainees exhibit health conditions inconsistent with military personnel. Evidence suggests systematic nutritional deprivation and physical abuse. Many show psychological trauma manifesting as catatonia or extreme fear responses to male personnel." The women received 2,200 calories daily during the 26-day Pacific crossing, a diet exceeding what they had received in years of captivity. Navy nurses discovered communication barriers extended beyond language. Miyoko Kawasaki, a 22-year-old Japanese national, refused food for 3 days, convinced it contained poison. Chung Minja, 19, from Korea, attempted to save portions of each meal, hiding bread and fruit beneath her sleeping mat despite receiving regular meals. These behaviors reflected deep psychological conditioning. Expectations of American brutality, ingrained food scarcity responses, and profound distrust. Processing at Angel Island, California occurred under extraordinary secrecy. Military authorities, recognizing the political sensitivity of these prisoners, classified them as civilian internees rather than military personnel. International Red Cross representative Gertrude Williams, granted access on August 17, 1943, wrote, "The women exhibit extreme reluctance to discuss their experiences. They display behavioral indicators consistent with severe trauma and exploitation. Their transition to adequate nutrition and medical care appears to cause significant psychological dissonance." The Army's decision to transfer these women to specialized facilities in Texas reflected both security concerns and practical considerations. The remote location of camps like Kenedy and Seagoville provided necessary isolation, while Texas military hospitals had Japanese-speaking female personnel originally trained for anticipated Pacific theater operations. The journey by train introduced these women to American landscapes, vast farmland, mechanized agriculture, small towns with electricity and paved roads that contradicted imperial propaganda about American poverty and disorganization. When they arrived at Camp Kenedy in October 1943, these women who had experienced the darkest aspects of military conquest would begin a different kind of journey, one that would transform them from victims to witnesses of democratic abundance. Late autumn 1944. Downtown Kenedy, Texas. The automatic doors of Piggly Wiggly parted with a pneumatic hiss that made Akiko Nakamura flinch. The 22-year-old woman stood at the threshold, unable to process what stretched before her. 8 women from Camp Kenedy, accompanied by 2 WAC officers, were experiencing their first authorized work detail to the local community. None had been prepared for this temple of abundance. The fluorescent lighting cast an unnatural glow across 7,200 square feet of retail space. Polished linoleum floors reflected the bright packages arranged in precise rows. The women moved hesitantly into the first aisle, where 27 different breakfast cereals displayed colorful cardboard boxes with cartoon characters and promises of nutrition. Yuriko Tanaka lifted a box of Kellogg's Corn Flakes, turning it to examine the price, 15 cents, identical for every customer, regardless of status or connection. The democratic pricing contradicted everything they had experienced in wartime Japan, where food access depended entirely on military rank, political connection, or black market capability. The produce section delivered the most profound shock. Fresh vegetables arranged in pyramids, misted regularly by automatic sprayers. Fruits available out of season, oranges, apples, bananas, displayed with casual abundance. In imperial-controlled territories, such items had disappeared from civilian access by 1941. Even high-ranking officers received fresh fruit only occasionally. Yet here, ordinary Texans filled wire baskets with multiple items, making selections based on personal preference rather than desperate need. Military escort records documented the women's reactions. Sergeant Eleanor Matthews reported, "Subject K-17 became visibly emotional upon seeing the meat counter. Subject initially refused to believe quantities were available for purchase without special permits. The refrigerated display case contained 14 different cuts of beef priced from 27 to 45 cents per pound, pork chops at 32 cents, and whole chickens for 39 cents. In Tokyo, meat had disappeared entirely from civilian markets by 1943. The weekly beef ration for Japanese civilians, when available at all, had fallen to 100 grams by 1944, while American supermarkets displayed pounds of meat without restriction." The dairy case provoked similar disbelief. Glass bottles of milk lined the coolers, 1 quart for 16 cents, available daily without ration coupons. Butter, cheese, and eggs occupied entire refrigerated sections. In Japan, dairy products had been reserved exclusively for military personnel since 1942. The average Japanese civilian received approximately 1,200 calories daily by 1944, while American supermarkets casually displayed thousands of calories in a single aisle. Initially, many women believed these stores were elaborate propaganda constructions. Yuriko Suzuki, captured near Rabaul in 1943, insisted to camp interpreters that the stores were staged for their benefit. This belief collapsed during subsequent visits when they observed ordinary Texans, factory workers, farmers, teachers, purchasing identical items with equal access. No special permits, no deference to rank, no variable pricing based on status. The canned goods aisle revealed American industrial capacity that rendered Japanese production microscopic by comparison. Campbell's soup, 10 cents per can, available in 21 varieties. Del Monte fruits and vegetables, Libby's meats, Heinz products, each national brand producing millions of identical items distributed through standardized systems reaching every corner of the country. American supermarkets of 1944 stocked approximately 9,000 individual products, an inventory diversity inconceivable in wartime Japan. The women who had been told repeatedly that America was starving under Japanese naval blockades now witnessed firsthand the impossible reality of American abundance. These supermarket visits, documented in military records as community orientation activities, constituted the most effective re-education program ever implemented, dismantling imperial propaganda through direct observation rather than counter-propaganda. The skepticism initially recorded in escort reports gradually transformed into comprehension. The Empire had lied. Dawn at Camp Kenedy arrived with a ritual unimaginable months earlier. The women rose at 6 a.m. to the sound of a bell rather than shouted commands. They washed with individual bars of soap at basins supplied with hot and cold running water. Breakfast in the mess hall included eggs, toast with butter, coffee with sugar and milk, a morning meal containing more protein than many had received in a week under Japanese military control. The daily caloric intake of these former captives reached 2,600 calories, triple what they had received before American capture, and exceeding even what Japanese officers consumed in the field. Camp records from December 1944 documented a standardized daily schedule. Breakfast, 6:30 to 7:30 a.m., barracks maintenance, 7:30 to 9 a.m., work assignments, 9:00 a.m. to 12 p.m., lunch, 12 p.m. 00 to 1 p.m., additional work or educational activities 1:00-4:30 p.m., free time 4:30 to 6 p.m., dinner 6 evening activities 7:00 to 9 p.m., lights out 10 p.m. This predictable routine, without threat of violence or sexual exploitation, provided a psychological structure absent from their previous existence. Medical records tracked their physical recovery with clinical precision. Average weight gain of 21 pounds within 4 months. Hemoglobin levels normalized in 83% of cases by January 1945. Complete clearance of preventable diseases in 91% of the women by March 1945. The women's section of Camp Kenedy occupied a separate compound measuring approximately 2.5 acres, containing 4 dormitory buildings, a mess hall, recreation room, laundry facilities, and a small infirmary. Each woman received an individual bed with sheets and blankets, a footlocker for personal possessions, and civilian clothing provided by the Red Cross. Captain Martha Reynolds, commanding the WAC detachment supervising the women, noted in her February 1945 report, subjects continued to express disbelief at treatment standards. Many initially slept on floors beside beds, unable to accept individual sleeping arrangements as legitimate. Work assignments evolved beyond camp maintenance to include agricultural projects, kitchen duties, laundry operations, and eventually skilled positions in sewing workshops and clerical offices. Mess hall records indicate the women began preparing traditional Japanese dishes alongside American fare when ingredients became available. Lieutenant Elaine Harrison documented how Yuriko Tanaka, a 27-year-old from Yokohama, taught American kitchen staff to prepare onigiri rice balls, creating cultural exchange through shared cuisine. Educational programs commenced in January 1945 under the direction of Dorothy Wilson, a civilian instructor with missionary experience in China. Classes included basic English language instruction, American history, home economics, and vocational training. Attendance records show near-perfect participation, 98.3% daily attendance despite classes being entirely voluntary. Women who had been prohibited from reading newspapers or listening to non-approved broadcasts now had access to library books, magazines, and monitored radio programs. The relationship between American female personnel and these former comfort women evolved from cautious supervision to genuine cultural exchange. WAC Private Ruth Anderson recorded teaching Kimiko Sato to play softball, while Sergeant Helen Martinez documented learning origami from Yuki Yamaguchi. Camp photographs from spring 1945 show mixed teams of American personnel and Japanese women participating in volleyball games, their facial expressions displaying unguarded enjoyment that contrasted sharply with their arrival documentation. Naomi Watanabe, whose medical intake photos showed a hollow-cheeked woman with vacant eyes, appears in April 1945 camp photographs with restored weight, clear complexion, and engaged expression. Her individual file notes participation in English classes, cultivation of a vegetable garden plot, and regular correspondence with an American pen pal, arranged through Presbyterian Church volunteers. The transformation extended beyond physical recovery to psychological re-engagement with life. The women who had arrived expecting imprisonment or execution discovered instead a structured environment offering safety, nutrition, medical care, and respect. Their gradual transition from fear to cautious participation to active engagement represented a psychological journey as profound as their physical recovery. The routine dignity of daily life in American custody systematically dismantled their previous understanding of both their captors and themselves. November 1945. The Repatriation Processing Center at Camp Stoneman, California, hummed with activity as military personnel prepared thousands of Japanese prisoners for return to their homeland. Among them, the women from the Texas camps faced decisions that transcended mere geographical relocation. Yuriko Tanaka, now 20, stood before Army Captain Eleanor Wilson with downcast eyes. "I request permission to remain in United States," she whispered through the interpreter. Her individual file, stamped approved for voluntary repatriation, would require modification. She was not alone in her hesitation. Military records from the War Department's Repatriation Division document this unexpected development. Of the 237 women classified as former comfort women, 62 formally requested asylum or delayed repatriation, 26.2% of the total. Their reasons, recorded with bureaucratic precision in interview transcripts, revealed fears transcending the physical destruction of Japan. Hana Nomura, 24, explained, "My family was informed I volunteered for factory work. They cannot know the truth." Yuriko Watanabe, 19, stated simply, "There is nothing to return to. My village was near Hiroshima." For those choosing repatriation, American authorities implemented preparation protocols. Education officers provided information about occupied Japan's conditions. Devastated infrastructure, severe housing shortages, rationing systems allowing only 1,042 calories daily for civilians. Medical personnel administered additional vaccinations and provided 3-month supplies of vitamins and medications. Quartermaster records show each returning woman received a standardized kit: 2 sets of civilian clothing, toiletries, preserved food rations, and American currency equivalent to $25. The physical transformation of these women presented striking evidence of their American captivity experience. Medical records documented average weight gain of 29.4 pounds since capture. Women who had arrived with multiple nutritional deficiencies now showed normal blood panels. Dental restoration, performed by Army dentists at Camp Kenedy, had replaced missing teeth and treated chronic infections. The contrast between their arrival and departure photographs provoked commentary from processing officers unfamiliar with their cases. Lieutenant Samuel Hawkins wrote, "Subjects appear to have been rehabilitated from severe deprivation. Current conditions suggest extended nutritional adequacy inconsistent with typical prisoner treatment." USS General M.C. Meigs departed San Francisco on December 14, 1945, carrying 175 of these women among its 4,700 repatriates. The women occupied D-deck compartments, accommodating 4 to a cabin, spacious luxury compared to the crowded conditions of other returnees. Ships manifest documents their registered possessions, including items unimaginable upon their capture: additional clothing, books, photographs, even small amounts of American consumer goods: coffee, chocolate, soap. The vessel arrived at Yokohama on January 7, 1946, delivering its passengers to a nation transformed by defeat. The women disembarked to a landscape of destruction beyond imperial propaganda's darkest predictions. Tokyo had lost 65% of its residential buildings to American bombing. Food production had fallen to 38% of pre-war levels. Civilian clothing was fashioned from military uniforms, rice sacks, and parachute silk. The American cigarettes some women carried as gifts were worth more than a month's wages in the devastated economy. Reintegration studies conducted by occupation authorities tracked these women's experiences. Their reception in Japanese society reflected complex dynamics of shame, suspicion, and desperate pragmatism. Women returning to rural areas frequently constructed elaborate fictions about their wartime experiences, claiming roles as nurses or factory workers. Those without family connections gravitated toward urban centers where anonymity offered protection from scrutiny. The most striking pattern emerged in occupation employment records. By June 1946, 41% of repatriated women from the Texas camps had secured positions with American occupation authorities. Their unusual combination of English language skills, familiarity with American customs, and understanding of Japanese society made them valuable intermediaries in the reconstruction effort. Women who had been treated as disposable by the imperial military now facilitated communication between former enemies. The bitter irony of their journey, from exploitation by their own nation to humanitarian treatment by their supposed enemy, transformed not just their bodies, but their fundamental understanding of civilization itself. April 1952. Tokyo's first American-style supermarket opened its doors on Ginza Street, its fluorescent lighting illuminating shelves stocked with organized abundance. Among the opening day staff stood Yuriko Tanaka, 27, whose employment application listed interpreter experience with U.S. occupation forces, but omitted her wartime history. As Japanese housewives navigated self-service aisles and marveled at refrigerated displays, Tanaka recognized their expressions, the same mixture of disbelief and fascination she had felt 8 years earlier in a Texas Piggly Wiggly. She had completed a journey from captive to witness to implementer of American commercial methods. This transformation from victims to cultural translators characterizes the unique historical position of these women. Military historian Dr. James Morrison's 1986 study, Invisible Prisoners, Non-Combatant Japanese Detainees, concludes, the documented experiences of female Japanese internees with prior comfort women status represent a previously unexamined vector of American cultural influence during the occupation period. Their direct exposure to American domestic systems, followed by reintegration into Japanese society, created an unofficial channel of cultural transfer that operated alongside formal occupation initiatives. International Red Cross records, declassified military archives, and oral history projects have gradually assembled the statistical foundation of their impact. Of 175 women repatriated to Japan, occupation employment records identify 93 who secured positions directly supporting American operations between 1946 and 1952. Their roles evolved from basic translation to cultural consultation on reconstruction initiatives, including 17 who worked specifically on retail modernization projects. Their unique perspective derived from their paradoxical experience. Victims of Japanese military exploitation who had witnessed American abundance firsthand. They had seen both extremes of the societies in conflict. A 1949 occupation survey of Japanese employees rated former internees from Texas camps 42% higher than other Japanese nationals in understanding American expectations and effective cross-cultural communication. Their traumatic past remained unspoken, but their knowledge of American consumer culture proved increasingly valuable as Japan rebuilt. The statistical contrast between their experiences illuminates the gulf between systems. During their time as comfort women, medical records document an average daily caloric intake of 900 calories, primarily rice, and minimal protein. Their American detention provided standardized diets of 2,600 calories, including regular meat, dairy, and fresh produce. Under Japanese military control, 82% contracted preventable diseases. In American custody, 97% received complete medical treatment, leading to full recovery. These numbers represent more than physical transformation. They quantify competing visions of human value. Their influence extended into Japan's emerging consumer economy. Former Camp Kenedy detainee Sachiko Nakamura appears in department store development records as a consultant for Mitsukoshi's post-war renovation, specifically advising on American-style self-service models and display techniques. The standardized pricing, open shelving, and customer autonomy that had amazed these women in Texas supermarkets became features of Japan's retail revolution during the 1950s. They had seen America's consumer democracy and helped transplant its methods to Japanese soil. Demographers have tracked multi-generational impacts through family histories. The children of these women showed higher rates of international education, English proficiency, and professional engagement with American companies. Matsuko Yamamoto, who had spent 18 months at Camp O'Donnell, later encouraged her daughter to attend college in California. That daughter, Aiko, returned to help establish Tokyo's first supermarket chain, based explicitly on American models she studied at Stanford University. Dr. Sarah Johnson's oral history project, Witnesses Between Worlds, collected 27 interviews with surviving women between 1985 and 1992. The testimonies reveal a complex legacy of trauma, resilience, and cultural synthesis. Interviewee number 14, identified only as Noriko, reflected, "What I saw in America destroyed everything I had been taught. The place I was told was barbaric, treated me with more dignity than my own country's army. This contradiction became the foundation of my life afterward." These women's journey represents history's most poignant irony. Individuals exploited as the lowest form of military resource who became hidden catalysts for cultural transformation. They had experienced the darkest expression of imperial Japanese militarism and witnessed American democratic abundance at its most mundane. This perspective made them uniquely qualified to help build the bridge between wartime enemies. Their story reminds us that cultural influence flows through unexpected channels, and that sometimes history's most significant witnesses are those presumed to have no voice at all.